Hey, it's Susan Ortolano here. It is Thursday, August 20th. I'm a relationship and marriage coach, and I'm here to talk to you about something really, really important. I know that no married couple wants to really talk about this, but a lot of people are going through it. A lot of people are on the brink of it, and that is divorce. And I wanted to talk about the number one reason why people divorce, like what often leads up to it, and what couples can do to prevent it. And I'm back, and my phone decided to cut out. So if it cuts out, I just wait a few minutes and then I come back in. So, there are a few reasons people think that divorce happens. And when it does, it's a really sad situation. It's like couples don't come together and get married thinking they're going to get divorced. Most couples don't. I can't speak for everybody, but most couples, meet, fall in love, go through their relationship, get engaged, get married, and think, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then we're going to talk about some of the things that happen. But, divorce is really a steep fall. And I've heard single people say, I would have rather been married and divorced than single all these years. And I'm like, oh, divorce is a very steep fall. And the cost of divorce, financially, logistically, emotionally, are so high. It costs a ton of money. Like here in the US, the average cost is about $40,000, and that all depends on what assets people have. And certainly, following a divorce or even during a separation, you need two households. That's going to cost extra money. If there are kids at home still being raised or still living at home, we have custody issues if they are under 18. And then, if you've got kids living at home who are like 18, 19 years old, they are going to have to either choose to move out or decide who they're going to live with. And it's really hard, when you're divorced, you really miss your kids when it's not your turn with custody issues. And certainly, one of the other things that happens is, you had your couple's friends, you had your in-laws, and suddenly some of those friends go with your spouse if you get divorced, and certainly their family generally takes their side, so to speak, and you no longer have a relationship with your in-laws, except if you have kids and they've got aunties and uncles and grandparents, and that's really the only time that you get to connect with them because they're no longer your family. And one of the things that happens that people don't realize is grief. Even if somebody wants out of a marriage because for whatever reason they didn't get the help they need to put things back together, or something got so bad that there was just no way, like domestic violence, those kinds of things, the grief can last for years. And I will tell you, as somebody who got divorced, I was 34 years old, and I could not say this marriage because the number one reason right here that I'm going to talk about happened. And I was the one who initiated the divorce. I was so glad to be out of that marriage because it was horrible for me. However, I still grieved. And it's not like I grieved for him. I grieved for the fact that I was no longer a married woman. I grieved for what had happened that was so painful in the marriage. So grief is not just, oh my gosh, I got divorced and now I'm alone. People grieve for the fact that they don't see their kids every day anymore. They grieve for what happened in the marriage. They grieve for the dream that never was, that never really took hold or never really sustained itself. And they grieve because they are alone, and they look ahead going, oh my gosh, I've been married for this amount of time, I'm this amount of years old, what's out there for me? Do I really want to do this again? And interestingly enough, a lot of men who get divorced kind of fall right into other relationships very, very quickly because a lot of men just don't want to be alone. Women will take more time to get help, work on themselves, figure out what didn't go well, work on themselves, all that kind of stuff, so that they can be better prepared. Because when I talk about the statistics, it is mind-blowing. Now, weddings are beautiful occasions. You see weddings, you see the celebrity weddings, and they go all out and they spend zillions of dollars. And you may have had an amazing wedding. My first wedding was, your traditional wedding. Wrong husband, but traditional wedding. It was beautiful, all that kind of stuff. My second marriage with my now husband, who I absolutely adore, we eloped because both of us had been married before, and we just sort of didn't see the point of spending money, because at this point my dad wasn't going to pay for a second marriage. We just eloped. We grabbed clothes out of our closet. We went to Vegas, and it was the chapel where John Bon Jovi had gotten married. And so we went in, there was a minister, wedding officiant, minister, and a witness, and just us two. And it was really, really cool to have it be that way for a second marriage, a second wedding, because what was most important to us, I'm going to talk about this, was the marriage itself rather than the wedding. And so many people forget they have these big, illustrious, elaborate weddings, but they forget a wedding is not a marriage. It's a wedding. And so they're beautiful, but again, if people don't follow the right recipe, and I gave a recipe a few weeks ago on a Facebook Live, and if the marriage gets flatlined or gets to the point where couples are fighting all the time, or the connection falls apart, the intimacy is little to nothing, and there are all these other things that happen, and to get people on the brink of divorce, then here's what you need to know. First of all, first marriage divorce rates, we know, and I'm going to say this probably every time, are close to 50%, right? Second marriage divorce rates go up to about 73%. So my husband and I, 21 years, we've defied the odds. Third marriages, divorce rates go up to about 90%. Why in the world does this happen? Because people think, oh my gosh, I've been married before, I know what I'm doing. But what happens is they don't do the work that they need to do. They end up attracting the same kind of person, and the same kinds of things happen in the marriage that leads them to a divorce, another divorce, and has those statistics be really high. Some people just don't like being alone, and they'll marry somebody a second time, for a second marriage where this was not the great love of their life. They just wanted to get married again. They did not like being alone. Some people fall into that, and of course, divorce can be inevitable that way. So this is not good news, right? And I know some couples, sorry, I'm getting messages coming down. Some couples won't even get married because they fear, the marriage statistics, and they're in long-term committed relationships. They live together, which is not the recipe that I'm going to encourage. They live together because they didn't do, again, this one thing I'm going to talk about, and end up splitting up because this thing that I'm going to talk about didn't happen. So what is that thing? What is the number one reason couples get divorced? It is lack of commitment. So if you're living together with somebody, you are not making a full commitment. You may say you are, oh gosh, we're joint tenants on a house, or we live together. That is not a full commitment. That is not. There is an open space for somebody to more easily leave when people are living together. So a lot of people live together and they say, oh, it's just a piece of paper and all this kind of stuff. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. Marriage is the ultimate level of commitment. But inside of a marriage, commitment has to happen. I'm going to share more about it. You committed on your wedding day and you said all these beautiful vows and all that kind of stuff, and maybe you thought that would be enough. And whether you lived together before, which I just kind of told you, it's not, if you're planning on getting married, living together for a little bit is not a bad thing at all. But if you lived together before, or you waited till after your wedding, after some time, life happens. Issues come up. Commitment starts to waver because people start seeing things that are coming up that they may not have expected. You know, we get married in this beautiful wedding and it's like this happily ever after. Well, that can happen, but it takes a recipe, it takes commitment, and it takes some other things to be able to continue to keep that freshness to a marriage, because life happens. If you got married and you did not have kids, parenting happened while you were married. It changed the dynamic. Somebody may have gone through a loss of a job that weighs on somebody, and that creates a dynamic where if somebody lost the job, the other person might be hounding them to get a new one right away, or they both may be freaking out. People experience illness, or, you know, it's like we just been going through all this COVID stuff. Some couples did not expect to be home together, or to get COVID, or to be homeschooling their kids. They didn't expect to be, you know, in such close quarters with each other and not able to be out and about doing the things that they wanted to do. And the marriage, I mean, the divorce rate statistics actually went up during the lockdown period. So, you know, a lot of people didn't realize what issues they had that they were not dealing with. And suddenly they're in such close quarters that finally things came up, but they really didn't know how to deal with it. So as I said before, my prediction for the lockdowns were we're going to see a lot of babies, because some people, you know, it's like, hey, what else are we going to do? We're going to see a lot of divorces, and both those things happen. So again, you committed on your wedding day. So what actually happened, and why does this happen? It's like, oh, our wedding was so beautiful. It's like 2 years down the line. Generally, divorces happen, or people start running into things between years 5 and 8. You know, they call it the 7-year itch, but it's between years 5 and 8 where things go awry. And if people don't get the right support to repair the situation, or they don't know the skills or the tools to use, then sometimes they feel like, gosh, I really don't see any other option. The average age of divorce in the United States is 30. And when I read that, I was astounded, because the average age of people getting married is 34. So most people get divorced between the ages of 30 and 50. It depends on how long they've been together, the circumstances, what happened. I was just reading, because I love all the celebrity stuff, that Sylvester Stallone and his wife Jennifer Flavin are filing for divorce after 25 years. That's not usual. After 25 years to file for divorce. Sylvester Stallone is 76 years old. Why file divorce? You know, but I don't know the inside situation. He may have done something that was a deal breaker for her. There may have been an erosion of the marriage over time. Both of them are very busy people in terms of, she has her skincare company, he's got his acting career, all this kind of stuff. They have 4 daughters, and he has one son who passed away in 2012 at a young age, and he has another son from a previous marriage. So, you know, things can get really complicated when you've got the second marriage or the third marriage, and I think for him it was his third. But 76 years old, you're going to get divorced. Something must have really gone wrong. Well, let's talk about some of the things that happen that bring a marriage to the point where people start thinking about it. First of all, lack of awareness. If you are not aware of what's going on inside of you, how things are landing for you, what's going on in your inner world, if you're not aware of what's going on with your partner, that's going to create a divide. And I'm going to cough. Hang on. Sorry about that. It is going to start to erode the marriage. Lack of awareness, and I like to call it radical awareness, where you're just like, you know, doing your day-to-day thing. You're not in tune. You're not aware of what's going on with your spouse. Your spouse might be feeling a certain kind of way, and you have no idea. So learning how to be radically aware, and there's certainly some things that you need to do in order to get to that place of what's going on inside of you, what's going on with your spouse, what's going on with your marriage. If you're not radically aware of that, things can just fall apart. And something can happen suddenly. I was speaking to this woman, and she and her husband had major issues at the beginning of their marriage. And there was like some drug abuse, and there was some abuse and all that kind of stuff, and I think some cheating. But they managed to work through that. And then all these years later, I think it's been like 10 years later, suddenly he comes to her and says, I want to split up. And she's just like, she had no idea that he was even thinking about that. For her, things seemed to be going pretty well. For him, he had been obviously stewing on some things, but not communicating. So there was a lack of awareness about what was going on, and suddenly he asks to split up, which is really sad. The second thing is mindfulness. Mindfulness is sort of like if you left your pet unfed because you were just busy with other things, your pet would die. If you leave a plant and you don't take care of it, you don't water it, you don't give it sunlight, you're not being mindful of what's happening. If you don't feed your children, they will starve. It's one of those things. Mindfulness is really about, it's really piggybacks on awareness. Mindfulness is being on top of things. It is being intentionally conscious of what is going on with your marriage, with your spouse, with yourself. And there's an intentionality between the two of you to have frequent, I call them State of the Union meetings, where you sit together, maybe you create a beautiful ambiance, and you talk about what's going on. And I recommend doing that weekly, where it's like, how are we doing? What do we both need? What is happening that we need to work through? That's being mindful of your marriage. That is spending time taking care of your marriage, and that will create radical awareness, because if you're being mindful and you're having your State of the Union meetings then together, where you're talking about very specific topics, and so you're not going to be in the dark about things. You're going to know exactly what's going on, what's going well, what needs to be worked through, and you're getting ahead of the situation so that you can work through whatever needs to be worked through and celebrate the things that are going well. People don't do that very often. They're like taking things for granted, but mindfulness is going to be a huge factor. And then, of course, radical commitment. And I'm not just talking about we committed on our wedding day. I'm talking about we commit every day. Every day you wake up, and instead of looking over to your spouse on the other side of the bed going, you again, you're like, wow, you again. I am so committed to having our marriage be amazing today, or whatever you're committed to creating for the marriage. Even if you're both going to work and kids need this, there needs to be some connection time or intentionality, commitment to each other every single day. Commitment to personal growth, because your marriage is also going to function as an opportunity to trigger old patterns, old stories, old beliefs you may have not healed. So the commitment to personal growth and using what happens in the marriage as an opportunity to recognize, oh my gosh, I just felt unimportant. Do I still carry that belief inside? My wife said X, I suddenly felt not good enough. Wow, that must have been in there for a long time. I need to commit to my growth so that I can heal that. So my wife, yes, here we go again. So my wife doesn't say X and you get all triggered and then you just make it about your wife. If your wife says, would you mind rehanging the pictures? I'm not quite liking the way that they were, put up. And you're thinking there going, oh my God, I tried so hard. I'm just not good enough. she just made me feel like I'm not good enough. Well, I'm going to tell you, nobody makes you feel anything that you don't already feel. So the commitment to personal growth and your own healing is absolutely critical, because otherwise you're blaming the other person, you're thinking the other person made you feel some kind of way, and that's simply not true. And you are guaranteed to get triggered by your spouse, because we come into life like a blank slate. But between ages, the time we're born, sometimes even in utero, till about 7 years old, we start to accumulate beliefs and programming, and we develop patterns. It's like we're in this big trance as kids, and all this input is going in, and then we start to make interpretations of that. We start to kind of go, oh my gosh, I must suck. I must not be good enough. Maybe I'm not pretty enough. Maybe I'm dumb. Whatever story you have about yourself gets formulated by the time you're 7 years old and really cements itself at 12. And this also can be about relationships, because you've got modeling from the media, you've got modeling from your family of origin, you've got modeling from the people around you, and all that input is coming in to have your mind start to kind of go, this is what marriage is, this is what relationship is. And even though, it's like if you're young and you think the gender you're interested in has cooties, you're still absorbing this information. And what happens, because nobody teaches you marriage education or relationship education, I swear, I'm not even on Wi-Fi, I'm on data. Anyway, so this is something that you really have to work with, because if you start feeling a particular kind of way and you think it's your spouse who made you feel that way, I'm telling you it's not. And if you don't know how to handle the healing process of what triggers come up for you, you may start to shut down, back away, certainly blame your spouse. If you get triggered enough times and you're not feeling what you hope to feel in the marriage, then a lot of times you're going to back away, and you may even start looking in other directions. You may actually start looking up divorce online, because you're thinking, I don't even know what to do. A lot of people have tried counseling, and I'm going to tell you, counseling again has its place, but it's not a forward focused process. Counseling is really about rehashing the past, and maybe they'll give you a few tools, but it doesn't require commitment. People can go to 3 sessions of therapy, and I hear this all the time. We went to 3 sessions of marriage counseling, or 5 sessions, and then my wife decided no, or my husband decided no, or we just stopped going. No commitment to it. And so, if there's no commitment to it, then it's not going to work. People go to marriage retreats and all that kind of stuff, and they get these aha moments. They may feel connected for the weekend or however long the retreat was, but do they have any accountability to apply what they learned? No, they go back, maybe for a few days or a few weeks, things get a little better, but then they go right back into their old patterns and habits. So communication may suck, because there's conflict, or you're feeling triggered, or you're feeling this, and then suddenly you're either intentionally not communicating well, or you just don't know how, or you shut down, and you're so angry that you shut down, you shut the other person out, hoping they'll notice, and then go, okay, what's wrong? And again, communication skills are not taught in school, so they're learned. And if you don't know how to communicate well or effectively, then even trying to work something through together is not going to go very well. No, people don't really have conscious conversations. They don't know how. Most people don't have those State of the Union conversations or those sit downs. Hey, how are we doing? What issues do we need to work on? What's going well for us? What's happening inside? Like, what are you, going through at work? What are you going through? Where are you at right now? Those conversations are so powerful, because not only do they help with, commitment, not only do they help with communication, but they also bond people together and create a better connection. But most couples don't do that. So the gap grows even wider, whether it's from so much fighting that they just can't deal with it, that lack of connection, that shutting down. And it happens so easily when your commitment wavers, meaning you're not committing every single day, you're not being mindful, and you have little to no awareness about what's going on with your spouse or the marriage. So things happen, and you are looking at the number one reason couples divorce. And that barrel of divorce may be staring right at you because you did not know that you needed to commit every single day. You did not know you needed to have radical awareness. You did not know that you were going to get triggered, and that was not about your partner. And I'm not talking about getting beaten up or something that where you have to leave. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about the everyday things that people get divorced from. Even infidelity can be repaired. For a lot of people, it is a deal breaker. And if it is a deal breaker, you want to honor that. But I've worked with couples where we repaired their relationship, the trust, the respect, the love, the connection, after infidelity. It's not an easy thing to come back from. Betrayal really brings up a lot of triggers and a lot of pain. So there are some things that definitely can be repaired and get you back into the commitment and get you back into all the things that you need to have an amazing, extraordinary marriage. So how do you avoid divorce? How do you prevent that from happening if it's staring at you because you don't know what other options you have? Well, I did give you a Facebook Live. If you go into the featured area, I don't remember what date it was a few weeks ago, but it had the recipe to having an extraordinary marriage. And here on these Facebook Lives, I can only give you a few tips. I can't give you a full transformation. That is for people who decide to work with me. They can get a full transformation. They can repair their marriage and have it be even better than it was in the first place, because that can happen. So here's what I can tell you. First of all, we talked about radical awareness. Again, we all get so lost in ourselves, our pain, jobs, life, kids, whatever's going on for us, that we're not being mindful of what's going on inside of us. We're just trying to survive, and we're not mindful of our partner. We're not radically aware of what's going on in the marriage. Conscious communication, number 2. Nobody, again, taught you that in school, so often it's a disaster with all this fighting, name calling, yelling, blaming, and not sharing, the shutdown. That's equally painful, and having little to no idea of what's going on with your spouse because nobody's really talking. And then, of course, I call it radical commitment. Radical means extreme commitment, and making that commitment every single day to the marriage you want to have, that you get to create with your spouse, and becoming the spouse that you want to be, because nobody taught you how to be a great spouse either. So you want to be the person, the best version of yourself, the best spouse with the most amazing skill sets, married to the person who's committed to you, who is committed to being the best spouse they can be and committed to their healing process. Again, marriage is the best way I know where people will understand the triggers that they have, because it's guaranteed your partner is going to trigger you at some point. So you know what's living inside of you, what beliefs, what old stories that you have that you don't want to carry anymore, so that you then learn how to let them go. And you can then thank your spouse, thank you for bringing that to my awareness, because I didn't know I was still carrying it. Now I know I can heal it, and that we can have a better committed marriage because of it. So turning away from your partner leads to trouble, because some people will veer off and start to check other people out because they just want to feel better. Some people will turn to porn because they feel that gives them, a temporary thrill, even though it's not real. The danger with porn is people can develop an addiction, and then that becomes something that they have to deal with. People turn to drinking. People have issues sleeping. People stop eating or overeat. Emotional eating. People really get spaced out, and they are not performing well at work, or work has become something that they can no longer do. I talked to a gentleman the other day, he and his wife were separated, and he just couldn't work. He was so distraught, he couldn't work. He was waiting with bated breath because it was his spouse that filed divorce papers and wanted the separation, and he was desperately trying to win her back. And unfortunately, she had some mental illness that wasn't being treated, and that's what needed to happen first in order for her to be in her best mindset possible, so that they could actually have a conversation about the marriage. So it's so important to, really turn towards your partner, really learn how to be radically committed, learn the conscious communication, be radically aware and mindful of what's going on in yourself and in your marriage so that you can have the best marriage possible. And finally, I always say hire an expert mentor who knows what it takes to have an amazing marriage. And this is where I come in. I help people, couples and individuals, where both parties want to save the marriage, they just don't know how. Transform what isn't working. Save the marriage so that people can be excited again, be connected again, feel like this is a safe place where they know that they are radically committed to each other every single day. It brings back the passion, brings back the feelings of love. Marriages can be transformed. Not everyone is worth saving. I will tell you that. But if you have a marriage where you want to save it and things have just gone awry and you don't know how to do it, that's what I do. And why I recommend me over counseling is because even though we do look at some past issues, we want to look at what's happening now inside of you. I don't care what happened when you were 5, unless you are still carrying the effects of that, or the beliefs of that, or the patterns. That is what I can help you let go of. That is what I can help you and your spouse let go of. I teach conscious communication skills. I teach you how to rebuild intimacy. I teach you how to rebuild the foundation that has shattered and cracked over the years because of some of these things I've talked about today. And I require commitment. I require commitment. You don't get to come in and work with me and 3 sessions later say, gosh, can't do it. And I charge a robust investment for people to do it, but people get results. So if you're looking for the outcome of having the marriage that you dreamed of, this is where you want to go, because this is what is going to get you the results you want, get you the outcome, get you that dream marriage that got lost somewhere because of all these things that I'm talking about, so that you don't become another divorce rate statistic. Because again, divorce is a painful experience to go through. Even if you sort of wanted it or thought you wanted it, it still creates a lot of pain. Having 2 separate households impacts your finances. The whole divorce situation, it depends on your state. Some states require you to be separated for a year before you can even get divorced. And that gives, they're trying to give people a chance to try to work it through. Some states are very in favor of, half, 50% of all marital assets go to the other person, and then you lose a lot. Again, maintaining 2 households, dealing with kids' custody issues if you've got kids of that age. Even if you have grown kids, it is very painful and uncomfortable to even your grown kids. And if you are sharing grown kids, and if you are sharing grandkids, if the average divorce age is 30, then most people are not sharing grandkids. But it is horribly painful to get divorced, to go through what that feels like inside, and to feel like you have to start over again at some point. And if you don't get those skills built for yourself, if you don't heal what's living inside of you, you can get divorced and go on and meet the same type of person with a different face, have the same situations happen in the marriage, and then go on to get divorced again, unless you know what to do to become a great spouse, to heal your history, and to be committed and mindful and aware. and to learn the conscious communication skills, how to resolve conflict, and how to do a lot of the things that nobody has ever taught you. So that is my message. If you are suffering in a marriage that is not working, I offer free discovery calls. And for those people who just don't want to wait another day before they know what they need to do to transform their marriage or save it from divorce. And so who I speak to on the phone are people who are totally committed, who are super coachable, who are very resourceful, and again, are not just looky-loos. Because this is like your marriage is bleeding out, so to speak. I'm the physician, and you don't come on a call just to shoot the shit with a physician. You're not going to go, like if you have heart issues, you're not going to go just talk to your physician about how they became a doctor or whatever. You want to get the help. You want the prescription you need to heal that. And I give the prescription to heal the marriage, to transform the marriage. So for those who want to have a discovery call, do not come on just to shoot the shit with me or to think you're going to get free coaching. This call is not about free coaching. This call is to help you understand what's going on and to determine what's possible for you in your marriage, what's not working, what is working, and what your next steps are. If those next steps include working with me, if I decide to invite you in because I'm qualifying you as well to see if you're somebody that I can help, or you and your spouse are people I can help, then I will discuss those details on the call. And I do not make offers to everybody who comes on the call. Some people are just not a fit, or their situation is better focused with some other kind of support. And if that is the case, I'm not trying to sell anybody. I'm trying to serve people and determine whether or not I can help them. If I can help somebody, again, I will explain all the details of what I do, how I do it, what the investment is. But if it's not, you're not somebody that I would want to come into the work that I do or to work with, or you're not, I don't see that you're committed, I don't see that you're coachable, I don't see that you're resourceful, or you just have a situation that is better served elsewhere, I will not take you on as a client or as clients. So I'm very specific about who I work with. I'm not here to close anybody, sell anybody, that kind of thing. I will offer an opportunity and an invitation to save your marriage, to transform your marriage, to get out of the pain that you're in and into the what you thought was going to happen, or even better, when you took those vows on your wedding day. So that is me for today. I will be back next Thursday with another topic and be doing some posts as well. So if you watch this on replay, #replay, so I know you are here. If you just watch it and you don't comment, so be it. And hopefully you can go through the feature, because I save all these Facebook Lives, and go back and look at the ones that I've done. Because everything I talk about is going to apply to you having the best marriage possible, because that is what I do. Alrighty, have a beautiful weekend, and